Hey you guys, how's it going? So I wanted to go ahead and talk about this as much as humanly possible because I feel like it's very relevant in this current situation that we're all dealing with. And I can't actually say the exact situation because YouTube will just straight up demonetize me, so I'm not even going to say the word. But the pandemic that we're dealing with has put us into an awkward situation in terms of sports, overall sports. But today we're going to be focusing on NASCAR and IndyCar, um, just general motorsports in America, because iRacing is getting its biggest push to date. There's never been a bigger push for iRacing.com. Real life drivers are running races that are being promoted not only via streams but on actual mainstream television. Now, there's nothing wrong with this. I feel like this is good for the sport. However, iRacing is extremely broken, and that's what we're going to start with. This is a list. We'll be putting in explanations as the video goes on for you to get a general idea and understanding of what's really happening if you haven't been paying that much attention. But I'm just here to provide social commentary as well, so if that interests you, you're in for a treat, I guess. So, the first thing that we need to start with is the game is broken, which is how I have it written down. Tracks and tires, mostly. We're going to get into the meat and potatoes of this as much as humanly possible, but I'm going to add in some examples from real-life drivers and what's going on in the current status of this topic.
Like, what the heck is going on? It feels like I'm driving on a wet track. Like, honestly, like, never once in real life have I ever had rotation that early into a hairpin at Barber. Like, are you kidding me? This isn't a Mazda Miata. This is an Indy car. Like, we have so much downforce. Are you kidding me? It's the dumbest thing ever. I hate sim racing so much. Ugh. Ugh!
So as you can see, the one that really struck me was the Conor Daly one, which is how I've felt about the game for years, which is, like, they take these real-life numbers and everything, which people really like to focus on a whole lot. But once again, simulation, and I've tried to bring this up to people who even, like, are on my side, and they don't understand what I'm saying. But simulation is flawed by default. Like, if you are trying to simulate something, there's always going to be problems because it's a man-made object. Nobody is perfect, and that is okay to a point. But when real-life drivers, when you get real-life numbers from teams, not only do you get the real-life data from teams, you get to scan their cars and you get to scan their tracks. Something does not line up, and I think it's from when they take these numbers, when they listen to how the drivers explain how the cars drive, they take that and they try to implement it as much as humanly possible, but they always fall flat. And it's because at the end of the day, simulation is flawed. Simulation can only go so far. But the general idea of how cars drive, you can get pretty easily. It's just the fact that they ride and die on this method of taking data and then trying to implement it into their engine rather than manipulating the engine to do what they're saying the cars do. Like, from a driver's perspective, from an engineer's perspective. They don't want to go that route. They want to put in real life numbers into their algorithm, and frankly, that does not work. It comes down to what is your engine capable of, and we're starting to find out slowly but surely. iRacing's algorithm and system and game, the code, is not up to snuff to be able to emulate this stuff correctly, especially on the IndyCar side, which is why I thought Conor Daly's comments were so pertinent and useful. He really nailed it on the head. It drives like a Mazda Miata. He's like, we have so much downforce, this shouldn't be happening, and it doesn't make sense. This is where the tracks and the tires for the cars get lost at a certain point. Like, the tire is definitely something that's an issue in iRacing. The newest tire model, I feel like, is a step forward. It's just a little bit broken in certain aspects, and it needs to be adjusted, which they can still do in the future. But the overall air physics and downforce physics for iRacing are just completely bunk and wrong. So I don't know what they're gonna do about that part of it. I'm not entirely sure, but they really do need to start with this premise. Who cares about the data? I mean, you want it from a marketing standpoint. iRacing, at the end of the day, is a big marketing machine. They do a really good job at it. They always have, and it makes people really believe what they're saying, which you've already got them hook, line, and sinker, and you'll have anybody in the future hook, line, and sinker. The difference is now is that you don't have to actually do that, okay? You can make this more simple, but at the end of the day, more realistic. Take what these drivers are saying as reality. You know, take what they're saying as truth and really try to implement what they're talking about, and don't just ride and die on the data. You don't have to do that. Manipulate the game into doing what you need it to do, rather than putting in the numbers and hoping that it works, because I really feel like that's what they do. So the next thing that we're gonna go through is not allowing drivers to have opinions. So once again, this is on the IndyCar side, where Scott Dixon made a comment that was basically, in essence, these cars don't feel real, they don't feel right. iRacing apparently got really upset about it, to the point that IndyCar officials were basically like, they told us to run it by them first before drivers start, you know, mouthing off, basically, is what was being said. And this was said on the Marshall Pruitt podcast, which, if you are aware of how IndyCar media is, Marshall Pruitt is the standard at this point.
So the next couple questions on iRacing, I should preface. So speaking with someone at IndyCar today, and was told that the next time a driver wants to say something critical of iRacing, or say that it isn't feeling exactly like an IndyCar, please let us know first, because apparently some folks there didn't like Scott Dixon's comments about, hey, it's not real, and I'm not really being able to jive with it.
It's really sad that iRacing not only does this with their actual player base, which they do. I will go back and give you a story for it. People will remember it if you were on the forum during that time. However, they don't even let their own player base have opinions, because then the rest of the player base that's ride or die will just come in and, you know, be white knights for iRacing. But even the drivers are not allowed to have opinions at this point, which is really strange, and it's not right, and it shouldn't be done this way. It just shouldn't. It's not okay. They should be able to have their opinion, and iRacing should be able to swallow it. I hate to use this term because it's been thrown around a lot recently because of the pandemic. iRacing needs to realize that when these drivers are giving these opinions, it will help the game if you take them seriously. If you take them seriously and you actually listen to what they're saying, this will go down well for you. A little sugar helps the medicine go down. And it's true. The medicine is the opinion, the critique. The sugar is that it's a real life person who drives these cars, drives on these tracks, does this shit that you're trying to emulate and simulate in real life every year. The sugar is they are the person to listen to. So take their criticism seriously. There are other developers in this fucking world for simulation racing that would kill to have the opportunity to have this many real-life race car drivers be on their game right now and be critiquing it, trying to help them, working with them. You can legitimately work with some of these guys and they would want to help you. They really would. And it's like, why are you getting upset? Now we're going to go to the story that happens to be about the general player base not being allowed to critique the game. After the newest tire model version came out, there was clearly a lot of issues. There still is. However, what was glaring was people were getting onto the forum and being like, this doesn't drive right. Like, this doesn't feel right. This is broken. Like, cars were flipping over, going 30 miles an hour. Like, there was a lot of problems. And iRacing was banning people off of the forum for 30 days, which they pay to have access for, by the way. But they were banning people off of the forum for 30 days for having opinions, for voicing their opinion. Do that to a driver. Go do that to a driver. I fucking dare you, because it'll go down really bad. And that's why they went to IndyCar officials for the drivers saying all this stuff, and were basically like, shh, please stop. Like, talk to us first. And it's like, they do have a right to say that. Clearly they do. But you should be doing the same for the forum members. It's not fair that you're like 95% of your community, maybe like 1% of them, and have an opinion, and then you guys ban them off the forum for 30 days? Like, that's strange. It doesn't make any sense. It's not right. It's not okay. But we go to the next point, which is there's not enough continuity in the gameplay. It's not realistic. For these main reasons. Number one, weather. Weather for a weekend changes. It is different weekend to weekend. Temperatures are different, which affect the tracks differently. Then you'll have, if you're driving the truck is going to really be the first car on the track for the weekend. Track should be pretty green, and then it should increase over time. So the truck should be on a mostly green track. It should be difficult to drive, because trucks don't just, immediately get on track during the weekend and, they don't just run 3 wide. They don't run all over the racetrack, which you can't do that in iRacing anyway. But the point remains is that the tracks are supposed to be dusty, and they should feel weird, and they should feel green. We don't have that. We don't have weather differences from race to race, week to week. You could do it week to week, and it would be perfectly fine, and it would be perfectly okay, and nobody would have a problem with it. In fact, there's a lot of people that play the game that want that. Why they don't do it is because they're lazy. Legitimately, that's the only reason, is that they're lazy. You can look a week in advance to see what is the weather supposed to be like in this city where this track is at. And you could implement that into your game. You could make it the exact temperature that it's going to be during race day. Or even if it's like 2 or 3 degrees off, nobody's going to shit on you for that. And then to expand on the trucks, right? Trucks would be on a green track. And then if you were going to run the Xfinity car at an oval, it would be the next day after the trucks had ran a race. There should be more rubber on the track. So 30-40% rubber on the track. By the end of the Xfinity race, and you want to run a cup car at that track during that weekend, then the track should be fairly rubbered in. Like, it should be a pretty good racetrack. It should be ideal conditions. So 60 to 70% rubber. This is not a thing that occurs. Why? I don't know. No continuity in the video game. It's something that can be done simply. It does not have to be complicated. It's something that you set when tracks are going to the next week on Monday. What's the problem? So the next one that we have to go to is NASCAR pushing for changes, which is a good thing. NASCAR pushing for changes is the best thing that is going to happen to your game, along with the push that both of these series, IndyCar and NASCAR, are giving to this game. There should be no backlash. There should be no questions. They should just do it, and they have been for the most part. So this isn't a major critique, but if iRacing is really complaining to IndyCar officials and maybe even NASCAR officials that drivers should keep a buttoned lip, that they shouldn't have an opinion about the game, that they should come to them first. Listen, guy, that's not how this is gonna go. I know why you want that, but you're not really in the position to do that because, listen, it's all of your marketing campaign. It was your marketing campaign for years that iRacing was the most realistic simulator. You use the most realistic data that you can, real data, real car scans, real track scans, and that it's realistic. Listen, when drivers come in and say that it's not, you have to listen to what they say, first of all, and secondly, you have to take it. It makes you look bad, but that's your fault. It's your marketing campaign. You guys did this to yourself. Nowadays, they've pulled back from it. Now they're talking more about the eSports, which is the major push that they're getting now, is the eSports push from NASCAR and IndyCar, running their cars on their game and doing races and all that. Listen, you guys did this to yourself, okay? You did it to yourself. You can't just claim it's realistic and then people who legitimately drive these cars in real life say, hey, this ain't right. And then you can't just immediately go and do that to them. You can't just act like they're assholes for it. You can't do that. It's your fault. The next point is real life drivers and sim racing drivers are being separated now, which this requires me to read a post on Facebook, which I will do right now. Okay, so let me get to it here really quickly. Here it is. So this was from Cole Newhaufen. I think that's how you say his name. But anyway, the post says, so USAC events with the USAC iRacing Pro drivers and real USAC drivers have been canceled. We are now separated, simply because sim racers beat the real drivers on a fixed setup. Here is my 2 cents. I wasn't racing for the money. I was racing because I wanted those guys and I on the same broadcast and to compete against each other. I wasn't going to race because of the $125 entry fee to pay top 3, but I did because it had been a dream of mine to race against those drivers. The fact that they are separating us from them now just sucks. The icing on the cake is that they are taking the entry fee money from the iRacing drivers and giving it most of it to the real drivers. Now for us iRacing guys, the purse is $200, $150, and 25 of us with a $25 entry fee, that is $625. And our purse is only $350, with the rest of our money going to the real USAC driver's purse. That's fucked up. People like me who do this because they simply can't afford to do the real thing. And now the real driver's paying the original purse without them even paying an entry fee in the first place. It was supposed to be for fun. To say that I am frustrated is an understatement. Damn. I mean, real shit. I don't know if it was because USAC complained to iRacing and then they complied, or if it was because iRacing just... I don't know what the deal is. I'm assuming USAC complained to iRacing, and then iRacing was like, okay, we'll separate them. But the fact that they are taking... What? Okay, so the purse is $625, or $25 for 25 people is $625, and the purse is only $350 for the sim racers race. They're taking almost half of the entry fee money from the iRacing guys and then putting it toward the USAC guys. That is completely unprecedented. You're stealing their money, and you should refund them their money. You really should. That's fucked up. The money that's being separated from the iRacing guys because of their entry fee and then being put into the USAC real driver field is disgusting. It's despicable. What really should have happened is iRacing is there sitting there, and then USAC comes in and they're like, hey, listen, the real life drivers aren't doing as good, and we find that to be a problem because we don't want our drivers to look bad. So can we separate the fields? iRacing should have said, hell no. No, we're not separating the fields. tell your guys to get better. Tell them to get better. I don't know what to tell you. We're not separating our fields. And that should have been the end of it. And then if USAC would have complained, then tell him, well, bye-bye. You can go home. You can go away. And that would have been better. That would have been better publicity-wise. It would have been better for morale for the game. It would have made the general player base of the game respect you a lot more. It's disgusting to me. This is disgusting. If this is true, that's disgusting. And now we get to our final point, which is the races are just bad. Like, the races that they've been running have mostly been jokes. Like, the NASCAR races specifically have been messes. Just complete messes. The IndyCar races have been like, you know, they've been okay. But overall, these races have been jokes, and it's actually putting real-life drivers at a detriment. They're losing sponsors because they are quitting a video game mid-race because they don't want to do it anymore. Bubba Wallace lost a real-life sponsor, Blue Emu, over him being wrecked twice. And he had no more fast resets. So he was like, I'm done. And he got off track and he quit. And it was after he was intentionally wrecked by Clint Boyer. I mean, like, I mean, this is a mess. This is a mess. And Blue Emu went on Twitter and said, we only want to sponsor real drivers, not crybabies, or whatever they said. Not quitters, I think is what they said. Disgusting behavior over a video game. I mean, the guy doesn't have to do this. He does not have to play. He really doesn't. I mean, the guy doesn't have to do shit. And then his sponsors are going to treat him like shit over a video game. I mean, it's just disgusting. I can't stand it. It's despicable. I mean, this whole thing started out being really cool and being a really inventive idea. Running your races on what seems to be a semi-realistic video game because of this global pandemic that is slowly screwing all of us over, screwing over world economy. You know, it's something to pass the time. It's something to give the fans of motorsports something to watch, something to be hopeful towards, seeing the drivers that they like and respect do something new and interesting. It was supposed to be cool, but now everything is becoming a joke. This is slowly falling down the ladder of a meme. It's almost to meme status, if not already a meme. To me, it's already a meme because the game is so broken. The game is broken. There's a ton of bugs. And then you have real-life drivers voicing their opinions. iRacing is getting upset. And then iRacing is separating real-life drivers from regular, everyday sim racers who are pros in the scene because they're too good. This is a joke. This is a joke. The drivers' voices are falling on deaf ears, I'm sure. iRacing has done a couple of changes. Good for them, but drivers' opinions are most likely falling on deaf ears, and then iRacing is complaining about it, and then the iRacing drivers are beating the real-life drivers, and then that gets them segregated from each other, and then iRacing is still, in a technicality right now, making a killing off of trash races with real-life drivers. I mean, it's a mess. This is a mess. This is a flop. This is a sham, a ruse. Like, it really drives me crazy because this could have been a really cool idea if they would have done it like once or twice, not every week now. It's really not. I really don't care for it anymore, and for many reasons. So, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the like button. If you want to share it around, you can. Otherwise, I'm out, you guys. See ya. I'm fucking pissed.